So 2020 has been a little bit of a mixed grab bag in terms of new releases. Some have been really good, and some have just been all right. And we haven't had a whole lot of new releases, at least in my mind. So what camp is Pure Reason Revolution going to fall into? Well, let's dive in and find out. Eupnea by Pure Reason Revolution. So, Pure Reason Revolution was a really interesting progressive rock band from the mid 2000s. They came onto the scene in 2006 with The Dark Third and just blew me away. I love this particular album. I actually reviewed it. You can find that somewhere up here. I love their intricacies in terms of sounds. They don't shy away from those very space rock, very acid rock, very mellow, but infusing it with a very hard-hitting the metal side. Never getting too heavy where it's full-fledged metal, but definitely flirting with those heavier sides of things. I really like how these guys are much more focused on the atmosphere in terms of developing their sounds. Since then, they've released 2 other albums of Armor Vicent Omnia, which I actually haven't heard. I haven't been able to find it, but I have heard Hammer and Anvil, and Hammer and Anvil is okay. It's a little bit heavier, it's more dynamic in terms of soundscapes, and a lot more directional in terms of creating heavy sounds. So when we come into this later album, this is the first album they've released in almost 10 years, with Eupnea. I think that's it. Eupnea? Eupnea. Maybe it's Eupnea. Who knows? I don't know. What we're seeing is this is almost a kind of a step forward from Hammer and Anvil. It still has a lot of those heavier aspects on it, those bigger soundscapes, but it's retaining a lot of those things that really made Pure Reason Revolution special in my mind. Very much infusing those different soundscapes, like getting the atmosphere down pat is something that's very important with this album and this band overall. And that's what I feel like really shines. There's a lot of really small sounds going in the background that takes 4 to 5 different listens to really suss out and really like navigate through to get to that gold. And it isn't all just heavy all the time as well. And that's something that I really appreciate from Pure Reason Revolution. Some of the smaller moments really bring the band down to like a base level on that sense. And they're not always just like straight up experimental. They're not always just way out in left field. A lot of the times it's a very intimate sound, and I like the blending. I like the journey that this album goes on, because there's quite a bit of a journey on this album. You know, this album I enjoy in terms of like the structural piece as well. We've got, in my mind, 3 really, really big tracks. There's the Silent Genesis, the second track at 10 minutes and 20 seconds. We have Ghosts and Typhoons, which is very much like the single of the album, which is almost like 9 minutes long. And finally, the title track, which is like 13 and a half minutes. So these 3 tracks really give us this big grand sounds, the big journeys. There's a lot more of like a longer stretches of music that we have in there, and then blended between all these tracks are the smaller moments as well. The first track of New Obsession, the third track of Maelstrom, and the 5th track of Beyond Our Bodies. These tracks are a little bit smaller, the longest being about 5 minutes, almost the 6-minute mark, bring us down into a touchstone area, and this allows us to kind of take stock. It allows us to just kind of think about the music that has come before, especially with some of these grand, really long journeys that we've had with some of these tracks. And I love how a lot of these songs start and end in very different places. For example, Maelstrom, kind of the mid-track on there, it starts off with this really driving drum beat that really kind of explodes, but then it gets really down into this very personal and intimate moment. And then by the end, it just explodes with all these different sounds. And the journey that you go on in terms of, you know, the synthesized overlayer with the guitar works and the dual singing styles of the 2 vocalists on here provide a really interesting interplay within all the actual music that's found on here. My favorite song on here is probably Ghosts and Typhoons. I like where this song goes. I love that there's this really big meaty part near the end piece that feels like this 8.5 minute track has this really justifiable end piece. Like, it really sticks the landing in that sense. The title track of Eupnea, I'm not sure if it really deserves to be 13.5 minutes. I feel like the end piece doesn't really hit home as much as I was hoping for, and that was one thing that I did notice about this album. Unlike, say, The Dark Third, there was no moment or a few moments on here that was really like a standout star child. There was no moment that really got me super engaged and super excited. The overall album as a whole is a really great journey from start to finish, but there was no star moment. There was no moment that was just like, there's the key, like there's that meat that I really want to sink my teeth into. Now, this is an album that you'll definitely want a lot of time with. You'll want to really sit down and digest and get into it, especially with like the second track of Silent Genesis. I'm still digesting this track. There's still a lot of nooks and crannies in this track that I like to explore and really sit down and get into. There's a lot of really heavy moments on this. Like, again, as I mentioned, they're flirting and almost courting the metal aspect of this. Like, there's a lot of chugging guitars and chugging landscapes that I didn't expect with Pure Reason Revolution. So overall, this album was a really, really fun time. I've really been digging it, and I think this is an album that I'm going to be returning to quite a bit. Is it as good as some of the albums before? Probably not as good as The Dark Third, but definitely leagues ahead of Hammer and Anvil. I think this is a really big improvement of Hammer and Anvil, and is exploring a lot of different facets of the band as well, especially after 10 years. And so I think a 10-year wait for an album like this from a band that we've had a little bit of a spotty track record, where some of the albums are amazing and some of the albums are okay. This is one that I would definitely return to quite a bit. And it's for that reason that this album is a download for me. This is one that I would have on my computer, I would come back to, and definitely revisit, because as I mentioned, a lot of nooks and crannies, a lot of small moments on here that you'll take quite a number of times to really get into. So that's about it for Eupnea from Pure Reason Revolution. Hopefully the next one will be a little bit easier to pronounce. What did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, let me know of your own thoughts by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.